Hello and welcome to today's webinar. It's all about modern selling skills for accountants and advisors, and I should say for progressive accountants and advisors. Specifically today, we're talking about how to find certainty in the uncertain world of sales. If I'm new to you, I'm MC Carter, founder of Practice Paradox. We're a digital marketing agency and growth strategy firm for accountants and business advisors globally. We've been going for a decade now, which is a long time in the digital marketing space. Now, it's my pleasure today to, in a moment, introduce to you Nicky Miklos-Woodley. Now, Nicky is a guru at sales. Nicky's been doing sales training for over 16 years. She's worked with small, medium, and large-sized businesses. On the large end, she's worked with organizations such as News Corp. And a few years ago, Nicky and I crossed paths and we really liked what each other was doing. And we saw a fantastic opportunity to tweak, tailor, and develop modern sales methodology, but so that it's 100% applicable to accountants and advisors, because you're not a typical sort of business. And let's face it, for many, the word sales can make your skin crawl if you think it's all about being self-interested, which it's not, as you'll learn today. So Nicky and I have collaborated over the last few years to develop some really great IP, some intellectual property around how accountants and advisors should sell in this modern era. And Nicky is going to share that, the structure to that today. So welcome, Nicky.
Hello, MC, and hello, good morning, or good evening, good night to everybody out there.
Yeah, depending which time zone you're in. So I'll encourage everyone to ask questions as we go. Nicky will be the presenter today. I'll keep an eye on the question and answer, because at the end of the initial 60 minutes, we'll have 30 minutes of in-depth Q&A. Now, this is really valuable for each of you because it's essentially free consulting time from both Nicky and myself. And Nicky will share with you a very good reason to stay until the end today. So I'll sign out for now, keep my eye on the questions, and join you for Q&A later, Nicky.
Sounds great. And MC, I am going to call on you throughout, because I would love for you to also share some real life stories around how these structures and processes have helped. So are you cool if I call you out throughout?
I'm happy to share a story or two.
Beautiful. We know nobody does storytelling quite like you, MC, I have to say. And I know there's a lot of people out there that would agree with me right now.
Well, I'll challenge you on a later date. All right, over to you, Nicky.
Excellent.
Enjoy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, and welcome to everybody again. Now, our mission today is really to have a look at how we can help you feel more certain and in your ability and or your team's ability to close more sales. Now, we are here to learn, absolutely, but the ultimate goal here is also for you to take action. And that's a really important part of what we're going to talk about, because you can, and I have this conversation with people all the time around, that was great, I saw this webinar, I read this book, and the biggest challenge is actually the piece around taking action. So I want to bring that to the forefront and bring that top of mind for you to be thinking, how will I put these tools and techniques into place and into action? And to be honest, I would be doing you a disservice if I did not ask you to take action. So I will be at the end of the webinar, as MC said, we've got some Q&A time, and I will be asking you to take some action as well. Now, we believe so much in what we have collaborated on and what we have created. We have an exceptional offer for you to the value of $2,200, so a couple of grand that you could be saving, and I'm going to explain that later. So really stay with us, stick with us, take notes, write down your questions, put them in the comments, think about how will I take action from here, and we're going to guide you through the process today. We're going to show you, and really at the end of today, you're going to also be able to have a look and understand, why is this uncertainty happening? Because there's a lot of uncertainty in sales, and there's often a lot of uncertainty in business. So we're going to go through some different structures and processes for you to be able to get control over your sales opportunities as well. And we're going to have a look at some simple strategies that you can take to stay focused on your customer experience. So that's my abbreviation there, CX. Because what can happen is we get so focused on, oh, what's the next step? What do I need to do? What's the right thing to be saying here? That all of a sudden you're making it about you. You're not making it about your client. And we lose focus of the customer experience. And that's another reason why this is so important for you to have a look at. And really, I commend everybody that's online today and watching this, because if you're investing the time in understanding what's happening and why certain things are happening, you can then, as I said, take the action to change that and grow your business or get the right types of clients on board. Now, let's face it, the road to success is not always clear, and the road to sales is not always clear. This is what creates that feeling of uncertainty or the feeling of fear, because it really creates unknown. And what happens is that we get this feeling of sales is scary. And this is simply because you're entering that world of unknown. And all of a sudden, sales becomes an enigma. It becomes something that we or our team avoid. And by the way, something to consider, because I know we'll have people online that are one-person bands, one-person firms, and there's some of you that will have teams. But if you've got a team, I really want you to take this as the way that you view sales or your beliefs around sales will 100% impact how your team view and see sales. So this is not a matter of, oh, that's okay, I've got great people in my firm that take care of the clients from a sales point of view or take care of prospects. They're looking to you to say, well, what is your viewpoint? What are the values and the culture from a high-performance sales component, from a sales aspect? So really important to think about that. And if you can resonate with this gentleman here on the screen at all, then you'll know that sales can be scary. It can really feel that way. But let's have a look at what's really holding you back, because I touched on the fact that it can be your beliefs around selling as well. And there's oftentimes beliefs around, well, if a client wants something, they're going to ask for it. Have you thought that? Or, I don't have to sell. I'm not in a position where I have to sell. Sometimes it could feel like selling is beneath you. Or sometimes you might feel like, well, no, I'm the principal or the director of a firm. I don't have to sell. But again, you've got to really look at breaking down this myth to see how is it impacting your firm, your business as a whole. A lot of people see sales as manipulation, it's self-interested, it's greedy, it's pushy, it's fake. And I know that there's a lot of you out there that would be resonating with this. It's also this real sense of, I don't want to do the hard sell. What if they say no? So this is a big one in terms of feeding into this fear of rejection that we all have. And, you know, it can also tap into our fight or flight response, which is a whole other conversation. But really this fear of rejection it's a real feeling, and we don't want to put ourselves in this position. And this is another one that a lot of people don't really realize they have as a belief or a fear, but it's very relevant to what we're talking about today. What if they say yes? What do I do next? We don't often consider that the fear or the uncertainty or the thing that's holding us back is sometimes because we don't know what to do if the client says yes. Think about it. Now, that could be saying yes to an appointment. That could be saying yes to you working with them. There's a lot of underlying beliefs and thoughts around that could be holding you back. And it's all of these things that are driving that feeling of uncertainty, that feeling of the unknown. Ultimately, uncertainty is the unknown. Now, certainty is a core need that we as all human beings need. How much we prioritize it depends on the individual, but we all have a core need of certainty. And the way that we fulfill that need is through lineal order, through process, through steps. There's a whole different way, a variety of ways that we can fulfill that need. And business is no different, and sales is no different. So if we now have a look at what are the things that are driving this unknown and this uncertainty, sometimes it's as simple as there's too many variables. There's too many options for you or your team to consider. We're relying on human interaction. So we can talk about processes, and I'm going to take you through what to implement to overcome this uncertainty. But even then, there's still going to be a component of the unknown because we're relying on human interaction, which means that there's different communication styles, different behavioral styles. For those of you who we've worked together in the past, we've talked about the winning mix and the different types of personality or communication styles that we need to tap into to have an effective conversation. There's a lot of thinking about the what ifs. What if they say no? What if they say yes? What if I sound like an idiot? What if I don't come across as professional? What if I don't know what I'm talking about? There's so many factors here, which means that the best next step is filled with so much ambiguity that we put so much pressure on ourselves to get it right. And again, if you have a team, you need to think about, how am I setting my team up for success that's taking care of all of these key factors? That we're removing some of the variables, that we're upskilling ourselves or our teams to make sure that we know how to communicate really effectively with different types of people, that there's a linear order to the next step, and it relieves that pressure to get it right. Now, all these things then lead to asking ourselves, what do I do next? And sometimes we don't have the answer. If you need to think about this at every single step, every single client interaction, from the first phone call to the second conversation to the meeting to whatever it might be, it's too much. It's taking too much brain space. And let's face it, it's about as enjoyable as sucking on a lemon. Now, let's talk about this taking too much brain space. You will have heard, there's stories of successful people all over the place, but you think about Steve Jobs or Mark Zuckerberg, you may have noticed that they wear the same outfit every day. And why do you think that is? It's not that they lack imagination or creativity in terms of their wardrobe. I don't know, maybe, but that's not the reason they do it. They do it because it takes away the thought process. The time that it takes to think about, what am I going to wear today? What am I going to wear this week? That actually takes up brain space. And what that means is that time thinking, or that space thinking about something like, what am I having for lunch or what am I eating today, could be spent on innovation, on so many other things. And what I want to throw out there, the reason that I'm sharing this story, is if something as simple as your outfit, changing the thought process or putting a process in place so you don't have to think about what you're wearing, if something as simple as that can make a difference in terms of creating more space and thinking, what would it mean for your business if you were able to put a process in place that took the thinking out of every client interaction? This is, real stuff. This is what can help make a huge difference in your firm, in your business. And that's why the antidote to the uncertainty, to the unknown, is structure. Structure provides the path to success. And it takes out a lot, not all, but a lot of the unknown. And it definitely takes away the thinking at every step. And what I mean by the thinking is what next, which means that it creates the space and the environment for you to be fully present with your client or your prospect, for you to think creatively and innovatively around what is the best solution for them, for you to focus on other areas of your firm. The list is endless. So we've looked at why the uncertainty happens, but let's have a look at why this matters. And, there's some key reasons as to why it's so important that you work on overcoming the unknown around sales, and whether that's for yourself or for your team. Also, as to why you're working on the unknown or the beliefs around sales if they're unresourceful, because there's certainly resourceful habits that can be at play as well. And some things that come to mind are getting the right type of client on board. This is going to allow you to onboard clients quicker, more effectively. So in other words, have a shorter conversion time and a higher conversion rate. What if you could get your best salesperson, everyone in the firm selling as your best salesperson? And I'm going to throw this question out there. Please answer this question in the chat. I'd love to know, what would it mean for your firm? For your firm, if you could get better at sales, If your team could get better at sales, share with us your thoughts. Is it impacting the ability to sell higher quality services? And whilst you're thinking and writing your answers down, I'm going to invite MC to come out and share with us some real life examples. So don't forget, I know you're going to want to get drawn into his circle because he's such a good storyteller. Share with us your thoughts as MC shares some real life examples and stories.
Thanks, Nikki. Well, the first one that comes to mind, having worked in 2 different accounting firms over the years and having consulted to hundreds of them, there were so many things that I observed on the ground in firms that were the inspiration for me starting Paradox. And one that comes to mind is a sole practitioner firm in a CBD location. And they had a situation where they were the person who did the sales process. They were the person that would handle the initial inquiries. They were the person that would run the meeting. They were the person that would do the proposal. And that bottleneck situation clearly is a problem in any process in your business. If you think about it, every business, no matter whether we're talking accounting or business advisory or any service-based business, there's marketing, attracting people, there's selling, getting them to actually buy and say yes, and there's delivery and wrapping finance and admin, financial control around that. And you've got to have all of your processes working. So in this bottleneck situation, I was seeing things like, if he was available when the inquiry first came in, he would handle it and that would go well. But often he wasn't available. Last time I checked, principals and partners of accounting firms are extremely busy people. There's no quiet time of the year, it seems, anymore. It's always busy. So there was a problem because leads need to be responded to fast, don't they? Same day, ideally, next day, worst case. So there was a bottleneck there. Then with the running of the meetings, that was generally fine because they were scheduled out at a time when the principal of the firm was going to be available. So that would be fine. But then, and I actually got this feedback back through the prospective clients who said, when am I ever going to see that proposal? So there was a lot of a bottleneck on the back end of it. So what we did in that situation, and Nikki will talk about this later because we've got sales training for whether you're an advisor, whether you're a manager of advisors in the firm and therefore need to look at the overall situation, or whether you're a support team member, there's different roles that you can play in sales. And what we did in this firm is we taught their support team how to handle that first call, and not in a way where it's just handling the call and making an appointment to see the principal, but actually doing a very structured process and a series of questions that worked out if there was a fit between what that prospective client was looking for and the types of clients that the firm worked with. That was one thing. And the other thing, also preparing them for the process afterwards. And I won't delve into any more detail there, but that bottleneck situation was super bad for the firm. It was costing them many thousands of dollars a year. And by alleviating that bottleneck, we got a situation that, apart from solving that, the team member who was a client services coordinator, I think at the time she was about 30 years of age. So anyone who's a good communicator and at least moderately assertive and confident can do it. You don't have to be an advisor to take inquiries because it's just a conversation. And she actually loved that. So it enriched her role within the firm. So that's one example that comes to mind. Another one, if I could quickly, is share the fact that marketing is, bringing the horse to water, so to speak. And then sales is seeing that the horse will actually drink. They go hand in hand, don't they? And we're committed to achieving the outcomes that we help you with. If we didn't care, we wouldn't actually address sales. We'd just stick with the marketing. But you need to do both really well. And what we're seeing is when you get trained up in sales, you get to a point where, combined with good marketing, you can bake in, is the term that I use, bake in your advisory so that your value-add advisory services that you wish you could do more of, but generally you don't because you just do the ones that fall in your lap. You can bake those in so that cross-selling, I hate that term, but cross-selling of your additional services just becomes normal for the team. And one of the examples that Nikki will share, who's been through the sales training, has experienced this. And also the 3 different firms that come to mind, and they've all experienced a 5 times increase in the average new client value, because advisory isn't something you hope to sell later. It's something that is just sold up front. And when you learn to do that, it's good for your clients because you're helping them more meaningfully. Clearly, it's good for your revenue growth. And it's just more satisfying for everyone in your team who's capable of delivering advisory to actually get to do it. One of my favorite phrases is, plenty of people can do the engagement, not so many can get the engagement in the first place, which all comes down to the ability to sell value. So to recap, you can alleviate bottlenecks and you can greatly increase the average new client fee when you've got a strong marketing and sales process together. There are other stories I could share, but I think I've overshot my time there, Nikki.
No, you've done very well. Thank you very much, MC. And some really key points there, especially around empowering different people within the business to be able to do something, thanks MC, that they feel good about doing. And it saves that time for other people in the firm, in the business, such as the principals and the partners, to do other things as well. So really important that we look at what the process is around two different types of business strategies. And before you can put a process in place, you need to be able to identify the different types of client interactions that you'll be having. So the first step here, and again, I hope you're madly taking notes, is to understand the difference between client share and market share, because these are the two different ways that you will interact with your clients. And I'm going to take you through what each of these are. Once you've done that, you then need to look at what is the best process to align with each. And once you're clear on market share and client share, really the top tip here for you is to look at, okay, what is the first area I need to focus on and what is the biggest area of opportunity for me? So market share is all about new business clients, and client share is all about existing clients and opportunities. And client share is actually a term that MC has coined, and it's really looking at the different number of services that you're offering to each of your clients. Now, when I say you've got to also look at what is the best strategy for you, ultimately they both will be at some point. You'll need to prioritize, and a term that we often use is low-hanging fruit. So what's the lowest hanging fruit? If you're a smaller firm and you don't have as many clients on the books, and perhaps you're in startup phase or you're a one-person band, then market share might be the lowest hanging fruit because you're already offering a lot or most of your services to existing clients. So that's one example of looking at which is the priority. If you're an established firm and you've got a larger portfolio of clients, then a great starting point is absolutely looking at the client share opportunities, because they're already warm, they're warm leads, but they're existing relationships. So remembering that people will buy from you when they feel like they know you, they trust you, and they like you. So your existing clients will feel like that. So just to give a little bit more in-depth around what the difference is, market share is new business clients coming on board. Client share is doing more with your existing clients. And the reason that if you've got a good portfolio of clients already that you're working with, a low-hanging fruit aspect, so quick wins, would be looking at your existing, because it can be 6 times more cost-effective to sell to existing clients than to invest in getting new clients on board. So that's why you've really got to look at, well, what do I have to work with here? Now, a little bit more again about client share, it's the number of services, and you can measure it across the entire firm. You can measure it across per client, per partner, principal, client manager. And the ultimate success, the big picture success point here is that you have both. So you've got to look at your strategy as what's the low-hanging fruit, what's the number one priority, but move towards having a client share and a market share strategy in place, because that means you're taking care of existing clients and you're maximizing opportunities there. And you're continuing to bring in new clients as well, because we know that there's going to be attrition. We need to maintain, we need to acquire. So it's really important that you do have a focus on both of these key things. Now, I'm just going to pause here for a second, because I'm wondering if for some people, one of these beliefs that we've talked about in the past has come up. You know, if your clients are already working with you, there's a service that they're already, maybe it's ad hoc tax, or if you're not doing things like cash flow management reporting, or how are you being proactive in helping them, that would be, as MC said, there's the terms cross-selling, which, but really what you're doing is you're servicing them. you're helping them. They might not know that you can offer more. And think about how you're helping them save money, save time, particularly if you're working with small businesses or businesses in general. What you're doing is making such a huge difference that if you just continue to offer the ad hoc one-off services or don't go in with additional ways that you can help them, usually you're doing that because it's a belief that I don't want to be greedy, pushy, salesy. But can you see that then as an impact, that means that your client is actually missing out? So in fact, it's a disservice. So I just want to call out for some of you, if there is this unresourceful belief, make a note of it, because it's something that you want to work through to make sure that you're not holding your firm back from helping clients more. So I mentioned that the antidote is structure, and we've had a look at making sure that you understand the two different strategies that will help your business grow. And the first is, of course, client share, and then looking at market share. And depending on where you are in your business and the stage of business will depend on which is the priority first. Once you've done that, you now need to have a look at, so what is the sales approach or the sales process for both market share and client share? And this is a typical sales process. This is what we find all the time. A call or an email comes in, there's a response, a sent or an appointment made, the advisor meets the potential client, so it's a cold start, and then the proposal's sent and you become a proposal chaser. Now I want to touch on, we've got a better way to do this that I'm going to share with you in a moment, but first of all I want to share with you why this is not the most effective way to do it. So if a call or an email just comes in, there's no structure to the conversation. There's no qualifying process, which means that bad fit prospects might slip through. This also results in wasted time, and as MC shared, a lot of the times it's the principal's time that's wasted. It's not an effective structure that's been set up to help the client either. There's no sales process to set the people up for success in the business, as well as the clients that are calling you. So there's no best practice. There's no systematic capture of what is the information that we have here that we can use later on. So oftentimes what happens is you ask the client the same information 2 or sometimes 3 times. Think about what impact does that leave? What lasting impression does that leave on your prospects if you keep asking the same question? So we need to have a systematic approach and save that information. It also comes down to the quality of service, knowing that every time they communicate or interact with you, there's going to be consistent service, or regardless of which prospect is calling you, there'll be consistency in the service as well. And if you do answer the call, sometimes what that can lead to is a lot of free information that's being given away. And trust me, I'm sure we've all been there when you get on that phone and you get hooked in and you end up having a really great conversation, but all of a sudden there's no need for them to pay for the service anymore, to work with you. And that can happen in a few different points in the sales process. So let's talk about then the response is set or an appointment is made. There's no diagnostic or there's no gap analysis. And what I mean by that is there's no research. You can research and do Google, etc., but there's no information provided from the client that is really useful for you to use in the conversation, the meeting that you have with them. There's no opportunity to add value to the prospect. That's not included in the process. So again, it's very ad hoc. I hope you can see that maybe one person will do something well, and then the other time the client calls, it's not as effective or it's not as great an experience for them. There's not a lot of research or intel gathered on the prospect, and there's no buy-in on the process. And this is really important because the client has to buy into the process along the way. Otherwise, that's when proposal chasing happens. And that's where MC touched on, have you ever experienced where you've emailed something and you continually have to follow up and they fall off the face of the earth? So let's move to the point where the advisor has the meeting. So there's a cold start here because you don't have a lot of information. There's time spent selling the value of the firm, or actually not even the value of the firm, rather than having the client already bought into the whole process and bought into what you can offer. Again, There's time spent giving away free advice rather than having at this point, you should be having a very high quality conversation where you know a lot of information already about the client. But when you've done it in this way, there's no opportunity for you to go as deep at this point. So there's no clear structure to the meeting. The conversation is driven by the prospect's questions as opposed to being led by you to show the value of what you can offer. It really should be that way. And time is spent gathering information that you could have already had. So it's really not an effective use of time or for your client's time. So then what happens is you have the meeting, and the classic is, excellent, email me some information. So you email a proposal or you email the information, and they see the price later. They go into shock. So there's no opportunity to talk through the investment option or an opportunity to actually see their reaction live. So you can actually view and look at their response and talk through why the price or the investment is as it is. They can cool off, and this will definitely happen. This is where, again, you become that proposal chaser and you've lost control over the process. There's a wonderful acronym that I learned from MC many years ago, which is called BAMFAM. So if you haven't heard of this already, definitely write this down. BAMFAM. Does anybody know what that means? I'm going to put it out there. Pop it in the comments if you know what that means, and I'm going to let you know in a moment. BAMFAM. So these are the things that can go wrong when you have somewhat of a process in place. There's a lot that's not happening. Oh my gosh, you guys are great. We've already got some answers. Book a meeting from a meeting. You're wonderful. And it's something as simple as BAMFAM, something as simple as knowing that one step, one process at the end is never hang up the phone or walk away from a meeting without having BAMFAM to them. You must book a meeting from a meeting. That will save you time. That will save you follow-up. That shows the client that you are serious, that you are investing your time, and it keeps it top of mind for them. So well done to you guys. Now, this is how we recommend, probably not to do it, but it's often what's happening in the business and in businesses all around and in firms quite often. So we want to have a look here at what the better way is. I told you that I want to show you a better way, and we know that this way works because it is tried and tested. So the best practice sales process for accountants and advisors. Now, we went through two different aspects of market share and client share. And what that means is that you need to have two different approaches. So they're somewhat similar. And what MC and I have created is a 7-step process. But I'm not going to focus on all 7 steps right now because there's a few key areas that are really the vital behaviors, the actions that are absolutely visible. They're crucial when you are interacting with your clients. But we have to respect and appreciate that communicating with new business clients is different to communicating with existing clients to a certain extent. And that's what we're going to focus on here. So in the 7 steps, we've got some steps prior and we've got some steps post, but I'm going to share with you the 3 key middle parts of our sales process that we recommend you start doing. And this way you can take a couple of key things and start implementing. If you have a new business inquiry, you must look at what is the initial needs analysis process. And I'm going to take you through the 3 aspects of market share in a bit more detail. The first step is really around that initial needs analysis, understanding why the client has come to you, understanding a high-level overview of the profile of that business or that potential client, because they might not be your ideal client. And what that means is you may not be able to service them as well as your ideal clients. So don't hold on to clients for that reason. You've got to do a gap analysis. So let's look at how you can actually gather that information, get more information in a way that is time efficient, time effective, and really sets you up for success for that face-to-face meeting. And the face-to-face meeting is the live scoping meeting. So these are the 3 fundamental factors that are unique to market share, i.e. new business clients, when it comes to making sure that that messy process or non-process that is in place is out the window, and you're creating consistency for your clients and prospects, plus you're getting the information that you need to make sure you're saving time and money. And the other thing is you can easily upskill people in this. If you have a process, it's easy to make it a replicable process and a success strategy within your firm. So I'll go in more detail around these 3 key areas in a moment. But from a client share point of view, there's 3 areas that are the equivalent, which is client share gap analysis. So it's a similar aspect, and we need to have a look. Where's the current reality of the client's business? What's the future ideal state that they want to be in, and what are the opportunities, or how can we help fill the gap in between the two? The difference is how the gap analysis is actually facilitated and done between the new business and client share. Invitation to a meeting. So there has to be a structure and a process to formally invite people to a meeting if they're an existing client, because otherwise what's happening is you're actually going to overwhelm them, confuse them. You're going to throw a whole bunch of information at them that they're not ready. Remember, we talked about not having buy-in from the client, not having engagement from the client in the last non-process. So we have to find ways to engage the client and get their buy-in. Now, I call that permission points. In any sales process, we need to continue to get permission to keep the conversation going. And that's exactly what you're doing with an invitation to a meeting. But you've got the reason to call because you've done your gap analysis. And then again, there's the actual face-to-face meeting, the future-focused advisory meeting, otherwise known as FAM. So these are 3 key aspects. Even, there's 7 steps as a whole, but even if these are the 3 key areas that you're really focusing on, you'll definitely start to see a difference in the quality of the conversations that you're having with your prospects, i.e. market share, and your existing clients, i.e. client share. Now, let's have a look at really going a little bit deeper into the initial needs analysis. So the initial needs analysis is the first thing that happens whenever somebody makes an inquiry. So it could be through your website, it could be via phone, however they make contact with you. We must have a structured approach to do an initial needs analysis. And there's a couple of key steps in here. The first is the objective, the goal is to qualify that the prospect is the right fit. Because again, you're getting really clear on your buyer personas, on your ideal clients. You need to make sure that you're saying yes to the right people. It's not just that they're saying yes to you. So it gives you an opportunity to qualify that they are the ideal client. If they're looking for the cheap option, they might not be the right fit for you. So we've got to ask the right questions to really uncover that early on. It allows you to start gathering that background information as well. And it allows you to really explain your 3-step evaluation process. And that 3-step evaluation process is explaining that will take a few moments to get a bit of an understanding of your business and what it is that you're looking for. There'll be an opportunity for you to then share more detailed information in the form of a gap analysis, and then we'll get together and you'll be able to meet with an advisor face to face. Now, I really appreciate that there's some people that are listening to this and that are 1-person firms, and some of you will have a team that will be doing a lot of these different steps in the process as well. But regardless of what type of firm you have, the process is the same. It's how you bring it to life. So we tweak the conversation to make it really relevant to your particular audience. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that it allows you to subtly build your credibility as an advisor. So whilst you're having these conversations, or maybe you have your client services coordinator or the person that's answering the phones to do the conversation here. So that's if you have a larger firm, as MC shared in his story, but they get to plant some seeds as well. And again, this comes down to the training and the upskilling of your staff. So you can also, like with all of this process, what it's doing is it's differentiating you from all of your competitors by explaining the process, by taking the time to qualify. It allows people to feel like, oh, okay, they really are thinking about what I need. And I want to compare that again to people who don't do that, to other firms that are not doing that. So you'll stand out from your competitors by having a great process in place. And the first step is really that initial needs analysis. Now, MC shared that we have collaborated to really create best practice training and different resources for accountants, progressive accountants and advisors. And a part of that is making sure that you're across things like, what is the script? What is it that people need to say? What are the questions to ask? And it's not, there's a core similarity across different firms, but there'll be some areas that you will tweak so it's really relevant for you. And that's where we workshop, what are your INA questions and what is your script? Excuse me a moment. Now, what I will say is that it's not about, don't ever give someone a script and get them to read a script while they're on the phone. Anytime you hear MC or I talking about a script, it's always for training purposes only. And it's always about practicing it, giving your team or yourself a guide to start with. Best practice will be recording. So making sure that you record and watch back, but then you need to ditch the script and you need to be authentic when you're on the phone or when you're face to face. So that's really, really important. So again, to recap, the purpose, the reason we do an INA, it's to qualify that you're talking to the right type of client initially. This is a new business inquiry. To start to gather information, just the starting point of gathering information, to explain the process and what the next steps are here. And I just want to touch on there as well. This whole conversation is around creating certainty. And I mentioned that a core need that we have as human beings is certainty. You taking your prospect through this process, guess what it gives them? It absolutely gives them certainty, because you've taken the time to ask some questions and then you're sharing the next steps. You're explaining what happens from here. All of a sudden they feel taken care of. And of course, it allows you to build that credibility. So that's initial needs analysis when you're looking at new business. The second thing you want to have a look at is the gap analysis. So really understanding, how can you collect more information about your client? If you think about, if we fast forward to a face-to-face meeting, that is time rich. You know, there's always an investment of time or money in anything that anybody's doing in business. That's the reality. So a face-to-face meeting with an advisor, and even for the person on the other end who is going to be in that meeting, time is of value. It's really important. So you don't want to spend the time in that meeting gathering information that you could gather in a way that is much more time efficient. And it's almost superficial, surface level. And I'm going to give you an idea of the types of questions. And what I mean by surface level is it's easy to answer, say, in a questionnaire form or in a type form or an Excel spreadsheet if you have to, or a Word document. It's easy to answer. If you can get that information early, when you're in the face-to-face meeting, which is the life scoping meeting, you can go deeper. Because in any type of sales conversation, which all that is an effective conversation to uncover a need, you always want to go 3 levels deep. So write this down, 3 levels deep. And if you've already got a starting point of information, then it's easier in that face-to-face meeting to go deeper. Now, the reason we want to go deeper when we're talking to clients is because that's where you uncover the pain point and the urgency, the motivation to take action. That's where you uncover the real reason that they need your help. So I hope this is really landing in terms of the importance of thinking about how are you pre-qualifying the client and then gathering that information. And a gap analysis is a self-assessment. So the most effective way to do this is having the client or the prospect do a self-assessment of where they are now and where they want to be. And I'm going to give you some examples. Now, some benefits as we talk through of having a gap analysis is, of course, that it provides a structured process, surprise. And again, people are comforted by structure. You can see here that the starting point is around some background detail, background information. Just some logistics, some basic information that you don't have to spend time face-to-face finding out. Now, gap analysis also, it really impresses the client. because there's a thought process to it. Also, if you're using some tech, that can be really impressive as well. It's a comprehensive initial data gathering, and it accelerates your ability to know your client. And that is going to create familiarity. So the law of familiarity comes into play, where people they're attracted to, they recognize, they want to go to what they're familiar with, which again comes down to that core need of certainty. So if you can see here, we can look at business performance and accountability. So we've looked at background. We're looking at current performance, what's happening at the moment. You can look at the future, so onwards and upwards. So when you're looking at gap analysis, always think these key areas. And we'll talk, when I get to the live scoping component, we'll talk about why that's really important. And a great opportunity for you to put in some testimonials as well. Now, there's some key things to think about. Another really important part of this is that when you're talking to a potential client or a prospect, you can tell them what they need till the cows come home. And you may have done that in the past, and for some reason they don't listen or they don't believe you. And it's like, I know I can help you. Listen to me. The reason that that's happening is because when you're telling them, it is your truth. So they might believe it, but they'll never 100% believe it to be true. We need to get your prospects to tell you. And when they tell you, that's when they believe it to be true. That's when it becomes their truth. So taking your prospect through this gap analysis process really allows them, or it at least starts the process of them seeing the gap for themselves. And don't underestimate the power of that, because that's when it becomes their truth. So really important, guys. Okay, so that's the gap analysis. I trust you're taking lots of notes of what you could be doing differently, what you can implement. And of course, if you're doing this, make sure that you pat yourself on the back and acknowledge that you are doing this, and look at how you can do it even better. Now you're at the point, you have the person that had the INA has said, okay, wonderful. They've asked some questions. They've explained that the next step is that they'll send out a survey or some questions to answer. And then you're going to meet an advisor face to face. And this is now the face-to-face meeting, the live scoping meeting. A couple of quick top tips that I've found from working with different firms is when you send out the gap analysis, make sure that you give a time frame of when you want it to be returned. And I would wait for that information to come back before you do the live scoping meeting, because that information is really crucial for you to get down into the deep dive with your client face to face. It also shows how engaged they are and how serious they are, because this process allows you to get rid of the tire kickers as well. If they're not really serious, if they're not willing to invest 20-30 minutes in sharing some information about their business with you or their current situation, are they your ideal client? So give a time frame, and you've got to think about, will you continue that live scoping meeting if they haven't returned it to you? And there's a way that this is all of the intention and how you explain this as well. So you've got to make sure that you're guiding your clients and prospects through this process. And the most important thing is, when you have that information, go through that information before the meeting. And there's two key things I'm going to talk about here. Before we get into frequently asked questions, we're going to throw it out to you for some FAQs, guys. So make sure I can see there was a hand raised. So make sure you take a note of some of those questions, because we are not very far away from going through those questions with you. When we look at live scoping, there's two key things. Make sure you have a look at the information that you've gathered. And this is something that we've created for the people that are attending the Sales Mastery for Accountants and Advisors. And it really breaks down each of those key areas. What are some best practice questions to be asking? And in a lot of instances, you've already got some of those questions, some of that information. So how do you go deeper? What are the specific questions that you can ask to go deeper? Because it's not about a surface level conversation. And there's key things to remember in the live scoping meeting is recap on what you've found, the information that you've gathered. I'd like to talk about it as, when you're looking through that information, find the story. What is the story of their business, and how can you help them? Find what's the current scenario, the future ideal, and the gap. And you've got that information because that's how you've structured your gap analysis. Use permission points. So remember, I talked about permission points, getting the yes to continue the conversation, earn the right to put a solution in front of them. And this is why you don't put a solution in front of the client until this point. If you are selling a solution, in other words, an offer, a package, a service, a product, if you're selling or putting that in front of them before this point, you're selling too quickly. And that's when it becomes salesy, pushy. You can't provide a relevant solution without first knowing this information. And that's what your INA, your gap analysis, and your life scoping meeting is all about. It's all around questioning and finding out the truths of your prospect and how you can help them. So that's a key aspect. Be prepared, find the story, know what the gap is, and know the value of how you can help place the solution. And the beautiful thing about the gap analysis, the live scoping meeting, is that then you can actually workshop it live. So recap on the information that you've been given, find those permission points, ask, what I'm hearing is, or what I'm finding is that really it's about managing cash flow better. Is that right? So that's an example of a permission point. By doing this, you're also creating curiosity. You're uncovering the need, you're getting their buy-in, and then you're able to provide a relevant solution. And a lot of you will have heard of Practice Ignition, or you're using Practice Ignition or PI already. It is just an example of a really wonderful collaborative scoping and pricing tool that you can do live in front of your prospect. And if you do that live and in front of your prospect, that allows you again to see the reaction. Now, don't take silence as a no-go. That's not necessarily the case. Think about it. Sometimes when you're thinking about, can I make this work? What do? You go silent. Look at the facial expressions. Are they thinking? If they react or respond really negatively, ask a question. Don't go straight to, oh, but we can discount. Don't do that. Value what you offer. The number one thing to do is ask a question. So talk to me. What's happening here? What are your thoughts? Is this resonating? Is this what you expected? Just one question at a time, but there are different examples of questions that you can ask. And again, why it's so important you do this. Now, if you don't have PI, or if you don't have something similar, you could use something as simple as an Excel spreadsheet or your presentation template. The most important thing here, the purpose of this, is that it's live with the client so you can talk through it. It's collaborative. It's understanding the real-time response so that you can discuss it with your prospect, with your potential client. And then you can work through any barriers that they might have, and then you can look at making sure that you sign them up in the meeting. Now, I want to touch on a really important point here around signing them up in the meeting. I have found that sometimes, even with this process, what can happen is in the meeting, you've had a wonderful live scoping meeting, you've gone 3 levels deep, you've really uncovered the pain point and how you can help solve that problem for the client. And sometimes the client will say, or the potential client will say, great, I still need to have a think about it. Can you send me the information? And then we're flipping back to the old non-process, which is you become a proposal chaser. There are going to be times when you can't help it. There are going to be times when it's completely unavoidable, because with anything in terms of a sales process, there's not a guarantee of 100% conversion. We know that. The goal is to get better conversions, higher conversions, 5 times conversions, as MC said, and more and increase. But so you've got to do everything you can in the moment to avoid can you send some information through? So make sure that the outcome that you set for yourself, the intention you set for yourself, if you're sitting in and you're running the live scoping meeting, is that you will get a signature at the end of the day. So be prepared for that yes. Be prepared to say exactly what the solution is. Be prepared to have a plan B, an option B, only if you've probed and you've asked questions and you've uncovered that maybe it wasn't on the money, maybe there is another option. But only bring that out if you absolutely must. Be prepared for a contract to be signed, whatever your process is from there. And only if you have gone through and you've aimed to overcome their concerns, if they still then want to have a think about it, because some people, depending on the type of person, they might still want to think about it. Then, of course, make sure you bam-fam them. So you can say, absolutely. A good question to ask is, look, talk to me or tell me, what are the things that you're unsure about? If I email something through, what specifically would you like in that email? So if I email something through, what specifically would you like in that email? That's a really good question because it gives you an understanding of what they're thinking about. If they say, oh, just make sure you've got the cost, the price options in there. So that's what they're mulling over, everything that's involved. So you get an understanding of where they're at. And then you want to say, wonderful. Yep, I can absolutely shoot that through. And let's organize a catch up for 10 a.m. tomorrow or 10 a.m. on Friday, and we can go through any other questions that you might have. How does that sound? So make sure you're guiding them. A process allows you to lead the dance. A sales conversation and selling is just like dancing. When you've got somebody leading in a dance, do they just stop all of a sudden? That would be very confusing. You have been leading from the get-go, from the I&A, the gap analysis, and here. So continue to lead them and guide them to the yes. So really important. In summary here, we have got the market share summary. And again, there's a different aspect for client share because you can see how that would be. Initial needs analysis is all about a new business inquiry. We need to qualify, gather information, start the process. We don't want it to be too detailed at that point. We need to explain what are the steps from here, and it's an opportunity to build that credibility. So you can see how that's a bit different if it was an existing client. Now, once you've done the I&A, once you've shared with them the process and they're bought in and they're excited, you then need to send them the gap analysis in whatever format you have. You're getting background. Make sure there's background questions, current performance questions, future ideal questions. And if you've got the chance, put some testimonials or any other great information about your firm to start selling the value, the quality, the professionalism, whatever your unique selling point, whatever your differentiating factor is, that's where you want to give them that information. So remember then when you're coming to the face-to-face live scoping meeting, you don't have to sell yourself. They already know that you're a quality premium service provider. Instead, it can be about them. It can be about your prospect. You're being collaborative. It's a live conversation. There's a real-time response. You're uncovering needs. You're getting buy-in. You're able to discuss. If it's not the response you're after, better to talk through it right then and there. Don't assume, though. You need to learn how to read people and know the questions to ask to really understand what's going on. And ultimately, guys, you have a sign-up right then and there. And if not, you bam-fam, and within 24 hours, you catch up with them again. Oh my goodness, there we go. So I really trust that you have taken away some key nuggets of gold when it comes to how you are helping guide your client through the sales process. How you're, think about it as well as though you're showing them what the experience of working with you is like. Yeah, that's really important. Think about that. It's that first impression. If they feel taken care of, if they feel that level of comfort and certainty, they know that they will get that from you when you are their accountant, their advisor. All right, now this here is a snapshot of the entire 7 steps. So I mentioned earlier that there are 7 steps in total, and I touched on 3 of those specifically for new business clients, market share. But for those of you who were curious, this is the 7 steps. So there's a component around perceptual shifting, and that's all around mindset and beliefs work. There's a component around actually in-house, what do you do for the pre-meeting, whether it's new or existing client. And then you've got to have a look at your onboarding process, which is often overlooked. When we talk about sales, it's not just getting the client that's one part of it. But if you don't deliver, we heard before, 6 times more likely, more cost effective to be able to work with an existing client and sell to an existing client than going out and getting a new client. So if you don't get the onboarding process right and you have a disappointing experience for the client, well, why would they stay with you? So pay attention to that, which that of course leads into your referrals and your repeat strategies. So this is the 7 steps in its entirety. And I guess the question to you, or the thought that I want to give out to you, the statement that I want you to think about is the fact is you could be losing money right now. There could be some things that all you have to do is tweak your sales process. For some of you, you don't even need to change a lot. It's a couple of little tweaks, or maybe a focus on a particular area, or investing time and money and resource into upskilling your teams. Just small things could actually help you increase your revenue. Even shortening the conversion time is actually having an impact on the bottom line, really. So by not having the right sales process in place, you could be losing money right now. And I know Antoinette is on the line. So Antoinette, thank you so much for coming along. One of the things that I love about firms such as Antoinette's, who's the director of Embracing Accountants, is that no matter what, she shows up all the time. There's constant learning, constant and never-ending improvement to be had. And it's for this reason that Antoinette is absolutely getting the results in her firm. So we had the absolute pleasure of, we've worked together for quite some time now. And one of a couple of key things that stood out for me in our conversations post implementing the training and the coaching was that Antoinette didn't really realize that she didn't have the sales skills, and she knew that her team didn't have the sales skills that were needed to be able to tweak and implement a process and maximize every opportunity that was in place. She's shared that there were no systems in place for new clients. So it was very much the wing it, let's have a conversation. Who knows who gets it? Who knows who says what to what client? And not looking at the opportunities for existing clients as well, which has been a huge area of success for Antoinette and her firm. And they've had such great results and work as well in terms of rebranding and tweaking, their audience, their ideal client, and changing that. And there just continues to be so much growth there. So Antoinette, I want to take this opportunity to say, awesome job, keep up the work. And it's no surprise that you're getting the results. And one of the key things that Antoinette had also said is that by being able to go to her existing clients and look at what she's currently or previously providing to them versus what she could be and how better she could be helping them, she's actually been able to see an increase of approximately 25% for the packages that she's moving these clients into. So I want you to think, what could that make? How much of a difference could that make for your firm, for your existing clients? Imagine if you were getting a 25% increase. And the thing about this is, I know that a lot of the times your clients are getting that value already. They are already getting such great service from you, but you're not getting paid for it. So it's about time that you look at actually providing the value and in turn getting that payment in turn. So I really want you to think, what could 25% increase do to your bottom line? And are you really getting paid what you're worth, what your services are worth? Two key questions to consider. Now, what Antoinette and the team and I worked on is the Sales Mastery Matrix. MC did touch on this earlier, that we've been working together a few years now as well, and we've looked at best practice selling and sales skills and best practice communication, behavioral profiling, NLP. There's a lot that goes behind that, as well as best practice for accountants and advisors and your particular industry. And it's this combination of years of experience in the accounting industry and profession, in high quality sales and influencing techniques, that we have created specifically the Sales Mastery Matrix for accountants and advisors. So it takes on the specific considerations, the specific barriers to sales within your industry. And it's really been designed with efficiency, time management, and return on investment being top of mind. Because we also appreciate you can't justify pulling yourself or your team out, for a large portion of time necessarily to do sales training. So there's different ways and options that we have for you to tap into this knowledge and this content and these learnings without having to have massive amounts of time for you or your team out of the business. So there might be some questions around, how do I know if I need this? And I'm going to let you know in a moment. We've designed this Sales Mastery Matrix to be across 3 different tracks. So there's specific content and programs created for the advisor. for the leader or the managers within the business, and also for the team as well. And just to give you a really high level overview, with the advisor, that's where we really go into the 7 steps that I showed you earlier. And we explore different selling techniques. Like I said, you can have a face-to-face meeting, but how do you know what the right questions are to ask? Or there's a whole piece around overcoming objections and understanding why we respond and react how we do when we have an objection thrown at us, and how we can work through that with the client. That's just an example of some of the more advanced selling skills that we will share within this program. For the manager, it's all about looking at how do we ensure that you are implementing your sales workflow pipeline with the team, making sure that the managers, principals, partners, whoever's relevant in your firm, that they understand client share and market share, that you're looking at the results, the revenue results, the KPIs from a helicopter point of view. Are you tracking and measuring the right numbers? Are you measuring and tracking them at all? What conversations should you be having with your team? What coaching and development are you doing with them? And then from a team point of view, we can actually go even deeper by looking at the different archetypes, the 4 different communication styles that I talked about earlier. And this is great because it not only increases sales and relationships with clients, but it also has the added bonus of being really good for staff engagement as well. So, any kind of investment that you do with your teams, of course, that impacts on staff engagement and them staying with you longer and doing a better job for you while they're there as well. We also have a look at things like recruiting staff, attracting staff, making sure that you are across and your team are across the laws of influence. So that gives you an idea of the type of thing we have a look at. But throughout each, there's in-depth training, there's workbooks, there's videos, there's recordings, there's training, and then a follow-up mentoring session to discuss real-time learns. There's role plays. There's so much included to make sure that this is not theory-based only. A lot of people think that when you have theory, you've learnt the theory, then you've learnt something, and it's just not the case. And we cannot continue to think that way if we are in business and if we want to grow our business. There's scripts, cheat sheets, you name it, we've done it for you. And if there's anything else that you would want added, we'll create it. Now, I want to talk to you as well. I mentioned early on that there would be an opportunity for you to jump on an offer that is worth $2,200. So I want to give you some information about this sales and business growth audit. And it is a deep dive. Now, in a moment, I'm going to go through some FAQs, as I mentioned, so keep them coming. And also, you'll see that there's a link to do a sales gap analysis, which is like a mini version of the business growth audit. And we want to make sure that you are tapping into this. And I'm going to take you through what the business growth audit is, because we have a look at 7 key areas in your business. We look at sales culture. We look at the values that are driving those sales culture. What vision, mission, purpose do you have within your firm? What goals do you have around sales? How are you tracking and measuring KPIs? What structures and processes? The types of resources you currently have? What coaching and development, business growth opportunities. There's so much information that we're going to gather from you and people within your team. And then you will have a report that outlines all of that information and highlights the gaps. So essentially what that is a roadmap for your firm. It is sales focused, but it extends even beyond that around what are the gaps in your business to get more clients on board, get higher revenue, convert clients quicker, and grow the business. That's really what this is about. And then you'll probably pick away at and choose different strategies at different times. But the map, the roadmap, the path is laid out for you. So normally this is valued at $2,200 if you were to purchase this on its own. But today we absolutely want to offer it to you complimentary if you do take action today. And I'm going to refer to a comment I made earlier. It's great to learn, it's great to hear the theory, but it means nothing. These tools, these concepts, it's nothing if you don't put them in action. Without action, nothing can happen and nothing can change. And that's why we believe in this so much, that we want to dangle the carrot for you to go, yes, I am going to start taking action. A lot of the times when I ask clients and potential clients, why would you invest in paying someone? You know, why would you invest in me to come out and train you and the team and to do the ongoing support? And the number one answer is because there's so much free resource out there, but I need the accountability. I need the help to implement. Otherwise, it just doesn't get done. So if you could resonate with that, then, you know, this is a really key thought for you to have a think about. And when I say take action today, I mean before the end of Q&A. Okay, so if you are at all curious, all you need to do to take action is click on the link that you can see and book in a sales mentor conversation. Now, there'll be a mini sales gap analysis, which I said is a tiny version of the business growth audit, but it gives me an understanding of where you're at. You'll get the results immediately, and then you'll get to book in a time with me as well. That's all you have to do to tap into the offer that we have available for you. Now, let's do some FAQs, shall we? And see, I might call you out to help me out here and let me know what are the
cool.
got going on.
All right, great. And as you answer some of these questions, I'll put that link for everyone so they can just click on it of practiceparadox.com.au/salesga. Now, we've gotten into the Q&A a bit later than we originally planned, as it's a brand new slide deck and sometimes it's hard to know. So, Nikki, I'm fine to keep going until this countdown timer gets to 30 minutes, but officially we finish in 17 minutes. So everyone's got basically until this clock counts down until
ask away. Yes, bring it.
Okay, brilliant. Now, let's see. I've got the list of questions that come through earlier. Let's just touch on, Janelle asked earlier, and you briefly earlier talked about objections. So yeah. Janelle's challenge is getting an idea of any objections that might arise, number one, and how to overcome them. If you want to comment on that, Nikki, and then I'll chime in as well.
Yeah, so great question, Janelle, and it's such a fundamental part of the sales puzzle. I always talk about the fact that effective questioning is the backbone of any sales conversation, and within that is overcoming your client's objections. To be honest, I could actually talk for hours on this subject, so I'm going to do my best to keep it short. And perhaps this is something that we can have a look at another time. But you know, the thing about objections is you've got to think about an objection at its core is a belief. It's your prospect or your client's belief. And usually there will be, well, there always is common objections that you get. Time and money seem to be really common ones. And what that means is that if somebody says, oh, it's too expensive, that's actually a belief that they have. They believe it's too expensive. And that could be because maybe they worked with an advisor in the past and it was really expensive. It was out of budget for them, or there's a whole host of different reasons as to why they believe it's too expensive. So there's tools and things that you can do to help overcome the objection. But the number one thing I would say is don't rush in to tell them why they're wrong, because that's how they will feel. If a client says it's too expensive and you rush in to say, well, these are all the reasons that it's not, how would they feel? They'll feel like, well, oh, you're just telling me that I'm wrong. This is happening on an unconscious level. And when we go through objections, we've got to go deep and understand why people are responding the way that they do. I probably have to cut it there because I'm very passionate about this topic and I could do a whole other hour easily on it. So MC, is there any other gold nuggets you'd like to add to that?
Actually, just on that, so am I. This could be a good topic for one of our Ask an Expert members webinars because you could drill deep just on this one question. Yep. So one of my favorite aspects of the question, how do you handle objections, is to, when you're well trained and you've really, I suppose, studied and thought about and been advised around your sales process, you have all of the possible objections that could be raised documented out because you've brainstormed it, you've thought about how you would respond, you've done training and role plays with your team. But upstream from handling objections is what they call in NLP, that Nikki briefly referred to earlier, which is neuro-linguistic programming, which is a subsection of psychology, and it's called pacing objections. And pacing objections is raising points that you think will probably come up later and weaving them into the conversation earlier so that you're basically diffusing that as an objection from the get-go.
Yeah.
So pacing objections is a really cool thing to do because it's a question that they're going to have anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Yo, sorry, you go.
I was just about to share, some of the ones that I hear, having been, in the cubicle city of many firms and listening to accounting staff and advisory staff take calls, I could always tell when they're being asked questions such as, what's your hourly rate? Right? What a chestnut that one is. And I would always hear a pause. I'm pretty sure they were, I was about to use some bad language, but they were feeling some bodily movements, right? In terms of the accountant, well, how do I answer this one? And then there'll be flustering and, oh my goodness. I heard an answer once which a prominent business coach to accountants has taught, and she went on, we've got different hourly rates. We've got hourly rates for different people. We've got hourly rates for different blah, blah, blah. She went on for like a number of minutes about describing the average hourly rate. And when you know how to pace objections, you can say, by the way, if you're wondering what we charge, unlike most accounting firms, we don't charge by time, because that doesn't make sense, does it? Like, does your hairdresser charge you more if they take longer? Does a builder charge you more if they take longer? Well, they don't, because it's about getting to the end result. So we like to work that way because we think it's logical and we think it's fair. So the way that we like to work is to work out what needs to be done. We call that scoping, and then tell you up front what the price is. So that way there's no surprises. So we don't actually sell time as such. Does that make sense? And so the person's thinking, well, that was one of my questions anyway, and fantastic, because my last accountant would send me these, and this is when accountants clear out their whip, send out these bills that the client wasn't expecting, and it just doesn't work. So that's one quick example of a very common question. And you also need to know around objections that people are asking questions sometimes because they just don't know what else to ask, because it's not like they can test drive you. So they'll have these things that you might think, oh, we've got a tie kicker here. They've just asked what our hourly rate is. Maybe they might be a tie kicker. There are other ways to determine that. But for them, it might have just been a way to ask you something and they didn't know what else they could ask.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Yep, I love the what you shared there around the frozen moment of, oh God, someone's just asked me, what do I do?
Not that one.
And it's the uncertainty, and that again highlights the importance of having some form of a process and knowing, because you will get the same objections over and over again. Yeah, for sure. And if we can understand why those objections are happening, if they're genuine, because half the time they're not. Like you said, it could be, I don't know what else to ask, or it could be a fob off, or it could be a genuine concern. If we can understand that, we all of a sudden aren't handling clients, we're guiding them through a conversation and saying, what are their concerns and barriers? And I absolutely agree, bring an objection up earlier. And this is why questioning is so important, because you can do it hand in hand. It's taken care of. An objection may not even come up in the end. Wouldn't that be nice?
If we put ourselves in the shoes of someone thinking about changing accountants or advisors or bookkeepers, it's an intangible, right? It's this invisible thing, and it's trust-based for sure. It's rapport-based, as you mentioned earlier, Nikki, know, like, and trust.
Yep.
The adage that holds so true. So this certainty, why we've themed today around certainty, is uncertainty paralyzes people. So, if you can have a process, B, start your process so it sells your clients or prospective clients on what this evaluation process will be, that they think, oh, great, because I didn't know how to steer this myself anyway.
Yeah, it's a relief. You're actually fulfilling a core need for them. That's how deep this goes, MC.
There's lots of layers to this. And just before I ask another question that came in, a point I'd like to touch on earlier that was, and again, it's NLP based. And it was, I think, the comment that you had on screen from Antoinette Palmer of Embrace Accountants, where before she went through the training, she didn't know what she didn't know.
Yes.
Until she was trained in it. And a couple of quick backstory here is that we're called practice paradox. Sometimes we're asked, why do you call that? Isn't a paradox a problem? I said, well, paradox it's a challenge, it's a riddle that on the surface seems to contradict itself, but when you think it through is true. So I think a lot of life's wisdom lie behind paradoxes, and there's lots of well-documented paradoxes. And why we're called practice paradox is the number one skill set that will help an accounting firm attract better quality clients, do better quality, more future-focused services with their clients. The skill is called the ability to communicate value. And that, in marketing, is communicating value one-to-many. And in sales, it's communicating value one-to-one. So that's the number one skill that will help accountants cross that bridge, but they run 100 miles from it. So everyone here today, by virtue of the fact you are here, you're different and you're progressive in your thinking to even be in this webinar. So with that, I don't know what I don't know. In our study, 76% of the accounting profession has never been trained in sales, ever. So what an advantage you have when you move from what's called unconscious incompetence. In NLP, you don't even know that you don't even know. Could be called blissful ignorance, but we all go through that, right? But learning does not start in unconscious incompetence because you don't know that you don't know.
Yep.
Learning starts, and it's so good of Antoinette to, acknowledge and share that. It starts at that next level where you know that there's some stuff that you don't know, which is conscious incompetence. Okay. And that's where the learning really begins, which is why I just say to every accounting firm, if you don't do sales training with your team and you don't just build it into the annual calendar to do it first time around officially and then refresh it, you are really, you're in the 76% of firms that don't know what they don't know, most likely.
That's it. So what's the competitive advantage then of the, 24% that are actually doing it? That's the other thing to consider because, especially when you find good quality, when you're finding the best practice communication skills, in a way that will absolutely on a conscious and unconscious level have a really great effect on the people that you're talking to.
The sales process you teach, by the time they arrive at that meeting, that scoping meeting, they are pre-sold because they're so impressed with that first conversation, the gap analysis, thinking this is one of the pleasures I've had lately in dealing with any business when you do this properly. So some other questions, and I'm keeping an eye, guys, on the Q&A. Feel free to send through more. I've got all my little windows floating in front of me here. Even though I'm a male, I will attempt to multitask. So question here, does this apply to firms of any size?
Absolutely. So the thing, I think I briefly mentioned this before, is that it's kind of like, look at it like a skeleton. So the bones of the skeleton will be the same. And then it's how you flesh it out that will be different in terms of, the outcome with your client. So even things like, look at what is your lowest hanging fruit first. What strategy? Is it new business or existing? Tweaking the conversation. But this is also why it doesn't work to just get things off the shelf. You can go and get trainings and watch videos, and that's great. I still recommend absolutely do that. But the problem with that is that it's not tailored to your firm. So it doesn't matter if you're one person firm, it doesn't matter if you are 200 plus, you still need to look at how are you upskilling yourself and your team to get the best results for your clients and the customer experience. So
the process has a universal structure, but it's tailored to, I think, not just the size of a firm, but maybe also the stage of maturity of a firm as well.
Absolutely, the stage of maturity. And then I would take it even a level deeper to go, well, also tweaking certain words and language within, for example, the scripts and the questions so that it matches your ideal audience. If your audience are tradies and construction workers, or if they're, C-suite executives, you need to tailor your communication style and language as well to suit your audience. So,
great point. Now, questions come in from Kerry through chat. Would you provide sales training to staff who are not involved with clients, so they don't interview, they don't phone, they don't email them?
Okay, so I think that's, Kerry, the question that I would be asking is, what do you mean by sales training within your current process? Don't interview, don't phone, or don't email them. I would want to know what role they play in the business, and what you could do is look at perhaps incorporating them in a part of it. So I believe that it's really effective for any firm to have a high-performance sales culture. And what I mean by that is a high-performance culture, and sales business growth is a part of that. So you would want to make sure that you're checking in, and I'm happy for you to share how big your firm is, but you'd want to make sure that you check in on the beliefs and the mindset, the values, the vision of the firm, so that it is all aligned. And I mean, I have definitely done also sales trainings and workshops where finance have sat in. They're not selling, but they still need to understand how we communicate, or it might be the finance team or the reporting team or the ops team or the support team. And they've come in and they've actually said that they've gotten a lot out of it. Because the other thing I would say is, and I often joke that really we could call this being an effective human being training. Because again, we give you a structure and a process, but I think one of the differences and one of the reasons I just absolutely love working with MC is that we show you how to bring it life in terms of like objections, taking it so far back to think, like peeling the layers back to think an objection is a belief. You know, we look at human behavior that drives these things. So, but yeah, I mean, jump on and book a meeting and we can talk about it in a little bit more detail specific.
Now, I've got a couple of things just to touch on that as well. And thanks, Kerry, for raising that.
Thank you. Yes.
In the, if you've got a team that essentially you're saying really don't have much client contact, right? So I hear what you're saying. In the client share process, where you're looking to provide more value and more services to existing clients, there's a really, really good opportunity. Sales is a process, as we've talked about today, with structure. And it's a little bit like getting a job out the door in that there's workflow with jobs, there's a workflow with the sales process. And internally, in the client share process, you can actually enlist, so, you know, get on board your analytical and support team members to identify opportunities that they then raise those opportunities with the advisory team who do communicate email, phone, these days live chat, Slack, etc., and face-to-face with clients. So they're playing a really important part in, you know, the classic one that I always see, and it's different in different countries, but there's certain personal insurances like income protection insurance that are tax deductible. So, you know, the belief thing, wow, I and Nicky, you know, our whole teams together believe that the moral obligation is to your clients to make suggestions of things that would help them. So if someone does a tax return and they question about, do they have income protection? And that's no, I'd be thinking, you shouldn't have income protection insurance. You're far more likely to get, you know, temporarily impaired, and I'm not here to sell any risk insurance, but really that, I've seen some horror stories in my life of who I know where someone's fallen off a ladder and they're a tradesperson, they can't work, and they're, you know, they're facing a very, very serious situation in their life. Now, when I see that, I go, well, who did your last tax return? Because they just skimmed over the fact that there was no income protection. So that's just one example. So, Kerry, you can get your support team involved in going, wow, we're not doing... Here's another example, talking to a firm recently that wanted to move into more business advisory, but they weren't doing any of the bookkeeping, any of the cloud accounting for their clients. And if you don't control the quality of the data in, the likelihood of being able to advise in an efficient way to get an average hourly yield on that will be profitable for you, it's virtually not nil. So there's lots of services that you'd have on your list of things that you should be providing for your clients, like your older clients. There's, if they're in business, succession planning, you know, and any individuals, estate planning. There's all these other opportunities that is an opportunity, yes, for the firm, but it's an opportunity to help the client and make sure that they've just got their affairs in order. Otherwise, you're really not doing the right thing by your clients, which is why we believe it's a moral obligation to learn how to raise these suggestions. So it's a very long way of saying, Kerry, yes, train your entire team, particularly in that client share process.
And just to add to that as well, MC, because that's such a great explanation of it, the reason that you're holding back, because when you look at it logically in the way that you've just shared and the real examples, it makes sense. Why wouldn't we do this? The reason we don't do it is because we're making it about ourselves and feeling uncomfortable, avoiding not feeling uncomfortable ourselves instead of making it about the client. And this is not about you not feeling uncomfortable. That's not what this is about. You're going to have to work through that because you're going to help make the client feel comfortable. They're going to be taken care of. So stop making it about you, and now it's time to start making it about your client.
And one thing to touch on there, earlier you showed practice ignition, which we love. And in chat, I did a link to that and also to Go Proposal. Keep in mind, everyone, that what we're doing here is we're not going to say to you, here's a set of templates, follow that. Or here's a piece of software, use that. Because to bring about change, you need to shift three things. You need to shift mindset, you need to shift skills, and then there are tools and systems. And each of those is important, but on their own, a tool or a system won't change anything. And one of the things where Nicky and I totally connected really quickly was understanding that it starts with mindset. You know, you can go in and run training for your team, and if the mindset issue isn't addressed, they might sit there politely and nod their way through some training and pretend like they're engaged. Meantime, thinking, I should be back at my desk clocking up 6-minute increments.
Oh, yeah.
When they think that, okay, this is great, this is really going to enable us to really fulfill our vision. And I love, Nicky, how you address vision, mission, and values. When they can really see that this is going to help us be great, to be stars to our clients and really make a difference in their lives, that is the first green light to go through. And then there's the skills, and then there's the tools. So never anyone think, if I just get that app or if I just get that tool, that will solve the sales challenge. It'll be a piece in the puzzle, but in and of itself, it'll probably be a waste of money on its own.
And that reminds me of a conversation I had with Antoinette again around, wow, when we first started having our conversation, Antoinette was really bought in to the value of what it could give, etc. But her team were not. And I remember we had a conversation before we officially kicked off, and I said, okay, so what's the mindset? What's the openness of the team? And it was flat out, no, closed. A couple maybe open. There are a couple of people in there that were definitely not open to the sales training. But it was incredible to talk to Antoinette afterwards, because literally after the first 1 hour live online meeting that we had, just that first 1 hour, and the biggest critic or cynic in the room had shifted. Mm-hmm. And that's amazing, because sometimes we can get frustrated as well, or think, oh, why can't you be open? But what have we done to help them turn their mindset around? How do they know to think any differently? We only know what we know, back to your point. But that was really funny, actually, how quickly that turned around. So it can be done.
And, you know, on the mind shift changes, the mindset shifts, it's often hard to do that yourself. There's an old saying that a prophet knows no honor in their hometown. So, you know, the people that we're closest to don't necessarily have leverage on us to create change. So that's one of the benefits, and we do it ourselves. When we first met Nicky, we brought her in for a session with our own team, and Nicky now speaks at our masterclasses and so on. So bringing someone in can help make those shifts that you may have been banging your head against the proverbial brick wall going, oh, I just can't get Bill or Mary to sell, or I can't get them to make suggestions. The comprehensive change management approach that we take here will help us identify that, well, you know, maybe Bob shouldn't be doing that part of the sales process at all, and that's fine. Let's get the right person in the right part of the process, and not, you know, the old saying, don't teach elephants to dance. One of my favorite HR adages of all time, because, you know, waste your time and it annoys the elephant, is just to say we've all got our strengths and weaknesses, but not everyone necessarily is suited to be the front person, but everyone can skill up. Yeah. Everyone can get better. So that mindset thing is just so important to shift. Okay, let's have a look here. We've got on our little ticking clock. Now, a reminder, someone's just asked, they might have been multitasking and missed your explanation earlier, Nicky. They said, do we have to pay for this complimentary, you know, this gap analysis thing that's on screen? I'll just reiterate for everyone. You just go, and I put the link in chat. Go to that link, practiceparadox.com.au/salesGA, which stands for gap analysis, and that'll just redirect, go across to a questionnaire that is the sales gap analysis that you can see the screenshot on the left there above the clock. And you just do that, answer a dozen questions, and at the end of that, there's a little button that you click that says, let's do this. Click that, and then you'll book a time straight in Nicky's diary for an initial chat. So there's actually no commitment to spend any money today, which is basically where that question was coming from. And you've got 7.5 minutes to go, everyone, to actually qualify for then getting the full audit that is worth every cent of $2,200 if you go through that process with Nicky. And great, Nicky put that link there again. Cool. All right, now next question with 7 minutes to go. How do I know if I can afford this? Don't know too much about the costs just yet.
Look, I think, well, the first thing I would say is that you will lose nothing by us having a conversation, because I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at investing in things like sales training or any kind of upskilling in the business, you need to be thinking about what's the return on investment here. So to answer the question around how do I know if I can afford this, you probably need to shift it and look at what can I invest in to increase my bottom line at the end of the day. And I mean, that's one key aspect. There's also the pragmatic side of things around payment plans and all that sort of thing is taken care of. So if you are looking at doing the Sales Mastery Matrix, we would make sure that it is the right option, the right track for you to get the right results. And then we can also phase it out, look at payment plans. But I would be definitely looking at this from the point of view of this is an investment, and sales is the most justifiable investment that you can make, because the goal will be that you're going to make that money back fivefold, of course.
Well, a related question here is, apart from cost, what are the risks here? Could you explain your guarantees again?
Yes, so you will have noticed that there is a money back guarantee. So the whole idea around this is that I do not want you to be investing in something that you don't see value in. So if you're not happy after we have delivered the first virtual room online live training session with yourself or the team, you'll get a full money back guarantee. Which essentially means there's no risk. So if you invest and you're not happy, then that's okay. You know, there's no risk to the business.
A couple of questions have come in that are related. One is, how much work is this going to take in terms of time? And what if we're just too busy to do this?
Yeah, so how much work is it going to take? I think that the first thing to think about there is you're already looking at it in a negative, unresourceful way. You know, MC shared the stat before that 76% of firms, accountants are not investing in sales training. And not just in this industry, but across a variety of different industries, sales and marketing is the number one pain point and problem area for businesses. So I'm not going to sit here and say, yes, nobody has to do any work to have these results. I think what we need to have a look, but there is a consideration of aspects like time off out of the business with teams. So what we've had a look at is in terms of time out of the business to make sure it's really cost effective on your return on investment, we've chunked it down to little mini 1 hour or 2 hour, and oftentimes online live, like what we're doing now. And you can have up to 6-8 people at a time in that way. So we'll minimize disruption to the business, and we'll make sure that anything that we ask you to do is for a reason, so that you'll get better at the skills that are needed to grow the business. So I guess the key thing there is think about, if you're already looking at it like, oh, how much work do I have to do? It's the wrong way to be looking at it. It's an investment of your time, but we'll minimize how much disruption there is.
Nicky, another question. Do you just work with people in Australia? What about New Zealand?
Yeah, great question. And we work globally. So because we have this beautiful modern technology, it's funny because I actually find a lot of clients I work with, I'm based in Brisbane, as you know, a lot of clients I work with in Brisbane, I still work remotely. So it just seems to work really effectively. That's not to say that if you're in Brisbane, it wouldn't be face-to-face, but it depends on the solution and, you know, that you take up. So globally, internationally, anywhere in the world.
Okay. This one makes me smile. I'm a partner who's been around the block a few times. Do I need to do this as well, or just for my team?
Mm-hmm. So we are going to take care of you. Absolutely. It's like what we talked about in the part for, I think it was Kerry or Kelly's question around, does everybody in the business need to go through to this? We understand and appreciate your time is very, very valuable. So we do have different tracks depending on the outcome that you want to get. My suggestion is that you go through it. This is top-down approach, and how can we expect the team to drive a high-performance sales culture if we're not aligned as well? So I would say short answer, yes. However, we also look at what you need to get out of it. Is it the advisor track, which is what Antoinette did? She jumped in there with her team and went through it and was able to add a lot of value. Or it could be a different focus with the manager leader track, and it's a different type of content, in which case absolutely you'd want to get involved in that.
So in this initial conversation, you'll just work out together what the ideal tracks are for the different people.
Yeah.
Last question. Assuming this works, how long does it typically take to get results?
So yeah, great question, because again, we are talking about return on investment, and that is again very dependent on what you currently have in place, what opportunities there are to tweak and change what you're doing. It depends what stage of business, you referred to that previously, stage of business you are. If you already have a customer portfolio of 200 clients and there's opportunity for client share upsell, then obviously you'll get results. But the number one thing here, as MC touched on before, how quickly you get results will be how much time you invest and how committed you and your team are to make it happen. Because I will share with you wonderful tools and resources, frameworks, all of the great stuff that will help get results. But they're the tools. Without action, it's not going to make a difference. So in essence, how quickly you take action and how you follow up on that process and increase the quality of the action is directly linked to how quickly you'll get results.
Now, in our last minute, Nicky, I've just sent that link out to everyone again. So do you want to just yourself click on that link and just open up a new tab and just show people how easy it is to go through? And, you don't have to complete the whole thing, but just to show them what they'll do. So click that link, go to that page, and it will redirect, flick over.
So that's a great suggestion. When you click on the link, this is the first screen that you will see, and you simply just need to press start. There's 12 questions, really quick to answer, and you'll go through and start answering just some key bits of information so we can send you the results. The beautiful thing about this is you will get the results. Your score out of 60 will come up on the screen straight away and will also be sent to you in an email. At the end, once you have gone through answering these questions, you'll also have an opportunity to click a button. I think it says something like, let's do it. And that books in your one-on-one conversation with myself. Really, there's no pressure. This is not about selling you something that you do not need. All we'll do is have a conversation, 20 minutes or so, get an understanding, answer some more questions that you have. And if there's an opportunity for us to help, fantastic, we can have a look at that. And if not, then that's fine as well. But if there's anything that you resonated with, this is your chance, as MC said, to tap into some consulting time, really, to see if it could be the right fit. And for those of you who do, before we finish today, then of course you'll get that wonderful detailed business growth analysis, and we'll really give you the roadmap of where to grow your business.
Okay, well, if you go back to the other tab there, I'm pretty sure our clock has probably reached its finish now. It has. So thanks to everyone's amazing staying power of everyone through. The majority of everyone has stayed right to this end, and it's quite a long webinar compared to most. So thank you to everyone who's attended with us live today. I cannot recommend highly enough that you collaborate with Nicky. Thanks everyone who sent their questions through. Really appreciate it. Some last questions here. Will there be a recording? I recommend that everyone goes to our YouTube channel, and let me just give you the link to that in chat. Go to our YouTube channel, there's two things you do when you go there. You'll click the subscribe button, and then when you click that these days, that button then changes into a little bell that you then click that to say, yes, I want notifications, because what we do with our recordings is we put them up on the YouTube channel there. So it's youtube.com/practiceparadox. Thanks, Linda, for that question, because you want your directors, you love your directors to hear all of this info. Brilliant. So thanks to everyone. We'll wrap up. Thanks to you, Nicky, for sharing just a tip of the iceberg of your expertise, but it was extremely valuable for anyone in accounting and advisory or anyone in business in general. So thank you, and over to you to sign off.
Thank you so much, MC. It is always a pleasure to collaborate and work with you. And to everybody out there, again, the last message, the resounding message is none of this makes a difference if you don't take some form of action. So look at your notes, look at what you can do, and there's no time like the present. Just start now. That's what MC and I want most of all.
Wonderful. Well, enjoy everyone the rest of your Wednesday, or if you're over the other half of the globe, your Thursday evening, and we'll see you for our next webinar. Bye for now.
See ya.